Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Storm, and that name has to change. This video is just an assessment of my feelings towards The Amazing Spider Man 2. It's not exactly a full review, so I'm not going to give it a score or anything. I'm not going to try and go through a very rhetoric explanation of why the film was good or why it was bad, but just my thoughts and what I liked and what I didn't like about the film. And do be patient with me. I've only seen the film once, so my memory may be a little fuzzy on certain aspects, but we'll get to that bridge when we cross it. Off the bat, I have to say, Amazing Spider-Man 2 was definitely better than the first one. I did not like the first one at all, honestly. I feel that it was trying to do too much, trying to kind of emulate what the Nolan Batman series was doing, trying to be more realistic and gritty, which I didn't think was necessary for Spider-Man. It was a good touch to Spider-Man, I think, but not to the extent that they took the film. Also, a big source of contention for me was the fact that they made Peter out to be some sort of hipster. Uh, the clothes, the skateboard, I think kind of the hairstyle he had, also trying to stand up to Flash Thompson, not very good. Not all at all very good for Peter's character, but that's not the point entirely. Um, the Amazing Spider-Man 2, I think, did much better with capturing the essence of Spider-Man. His overall character as Spider-Man, I think, was much more fleshed out than it was in the first film. Although I do have to say, Spider-Man in this one was kind of more douchey than normal. What I mean specifically, when Spider-Man caught that Russian mobster, and then he caught him, whipped him up, and then started messing with him with the canisters and everything while whistling his own theme tune that I thought was unnecessary and douchey, really. I don't think it was needed at all. Uh, Another thing I have to say I didn't like, and this is going to be this is gonna be a big spoiler, I think. Uh, was the way Harry and Norman were introduced in the films. Um, as any Spider-Man fan knows, Harry Osborn and Peter Parker have been friends since. Well, it varies, I think, from interpretation to interpretation, but at least generally high school. In this one, Peter and Harry are out of high school. Well, Peter's in college. I don't know what Harry's doing. I guess beginning to take over Oscorp. In this one, though, we're presented Harry Osborn as if he and Peter were friends this entire time. I mean, granted, it is just the second film, but when you compare it to the original Sam Raimi films, at least when Spider-Man 2 came along and Harry took over Oscorp, despite everything that happened between him and Peter and Mary Jane in the first film, by the second film, things were patched up and they were starting to try to rekindle their friendship a bit. But in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, we have to kind of accept the fact that they've been friends for years and they're just getting back together after all this time. Now, granted, they haven't seen each other in I don't know, maybe over a decade, maybe close to that. So they're not exactly close. I get that, but the fact that Harry is now being introduced to the films and anything that happens afterwards just I did not work for me. Um, there's also the fact that when Norman shows up for the one scene he has in the film, this is a spoiler, by the way. Like I said before, this is a big spoiler. It's the fact that he's sick and dying from some sort of degenerative disease that we know nothing about. Apparently, he suffered from this for years, and Harry has it too, which we find out in that one scene. To me, that was very weak. Uh, no hint of Norman Osborn at all, as far as I can remember. I only saw, I guess I only saw the Amazing Spider-Man 1 once, too. I think about it. But, okay, little to no foreshadowing of Norman Osborn, I'll say that. And he shows up for one scene. He's sick, he's dying, and he tells Harry, by the way, you have this disease too, and it's going to start affecting you right now. The handshaking that Harry felt, had been feeling for apparently for some time now, was coming up again. And according to Norman, that's a side effect of the disease he has, which is genetic as well as being degenerative. So in one scene, we go from meeting Norman for the first time, and to him, well, being as Norman Osborn always is, belittling, hate-filled, and just doing whatever he can to disrespect and destroy Harry, as he's always done, even in the comics. It's just that when you consider the nature of this disease, apparently, and with the lengths that it's hurting Harry, and lengths he's trying to go to heal himself, it's just this big stretch to think that, well, we know nothing about Harry right now. All we know is that he's kind of a sheltered rich kid who has to maybe take over his father's company at any point in time. He has this disease, and all of a sudden he's obsessed with trying to heal himself. Well, trying to heal yourself is fine and all, but like the lengths he's going to just doesn't seem to kind of match up with who he is as a character for what little we know of him. Harry has been, in the comics at least, I'm saying in the comics, and trying to translate that over to a film, Harry has always been at least somewhat determined, to an extent, at least when it involves trying to impress his father. His father's out of the picture at this point, so there's no need to try to impress him. Try to stay around and beat this disease in order to take over the company and run it effectively in his place. But all of a sudden we meet Harry and Norman for the first time. Harry is sick. Norman passes on him, I guess, some sort of advanced flash drive sort of thing. He hooks up to his computer. If you've seen the film, you know what it is. This a really cool thing, by the way. It's kind of square shaped, a little big. Harry puts it onto that glass keyboard he has in his keyboard desk he has in his office. It brings up all these different files and videos. It possibly holds a clue to curing the disease, maybe. That's how Harry gets from it. He goes through all the research notes and discovers that a way to cure the disease, maybe, would be to obtain Spider-Man's blood. Now, the reason the cure may exist is because Norman worked with Peter's father, whose name escapes me at the moment. I forgot his name. No. I want to say his name is James, but I know it's not his name. Richard. That's his name, Richard Parker. So anyway, Richard Parker, Peter's father, and Norman Osborn, Harry's father, worked on this formula together that Richard had secretly inserted on his own DNA into it. So apparently the only way the formula will work if he has his own DNA in it. That or Harry can use Spider-Man's DNA. He went through all the research himself, checked out all the science experiments that Oscorp has been producing in the past, and figures Spider-Man is this big evolution in human biology. He has all the qualities of a spider. I use his DNA. I can create the formula and heal myself. So there's the solution right there. But of course, Spider-Man refuses to do it because he's seen what that can do to someone, especially the Lizard back in the first film. Dr. Connors was mutated by the formula using Spider-Man's blood, I think. I've seen the movie once. And he became the Lizard. So Spider-Man doesn't want that happening again, so he says no to Harry and tries to figure out some other way to do it. Well, of course, Harry is upset about this. He's raging at Spider-Man now because, one, he's dying, and two, Spider-Man refuses to help him. So, as the events of the film unfold, Harry realizes he can get to the formula that Richard Parker had developed. Now, I don't remember that Harry knew that it contained Richard Parker's DNA in it, just that it's a possible formula. I need to use it. I need to get to it. So he gets to it. I won't exactly say how. And of course, it mutates him. Now, the reason I'm explaining all of this right now, big spoilers, like I said. The reason I'm explaining all this right now is because through all of this work and all these scenes involving Harry and this one-off relationship with his father, for all intents and purposes, that for all the work he does to get to this cure, possible cure for himself, well, it does seem to cure him to an extent. It all seems to just build up towards a one scene wonder for the Green Goblin in the film. In case you didn't realize that Harry becomes Green Goblin. If you didn't watch the trailers, you don't know who Harry Osborn is from the comics. Maybe you didn't know he becomes Green Goblin, but he does. So that's, if you're a Spider-Man fan, that shouldn't be a surprise to you at all, especially if you've seen the trailers for the movie. Now what gets me though is that half of Harry's involvement in the movie was for him to get this cure. He gets the cure, he thinks, and then shows up at the end of the film just to be a Green Goblin for one scene. And then ends up. Well, again, I've gone through all this. I'm not gonna say exactly what happens next, but one scene as Green Goblin, and then that's it. So at the end of the film, which is extremely lackluster considering who Harry Osborn is. Harry is one of the most important people to Peter's life, other than, well, his aunt and uncle and Mary Jane and Gwen Stacy. Not counting the main Spider-Man films themselves, just in general. All that work for one scene, it was very weak, I have to say. Also, another weak thing, I'm saying this right now, in case you wanted to see the, spoiler once more, in case you wanted to see the Rhino in this film, don't get your hopes up. He's at the very exact end of the film, that last 2 minutes of it, maybe 3 minutes of the film. Extremely disappointing. I should have known something was up when I kept thinking about the trailer, and I kept thinking that every time they showed the trailer, actually no, now think about it, every time they showed the trailer, it was, every time it featured Rhino, it was the one scene with him stomping on the street, putting down the helmet, and then charging towards Spider-Man while Spider-Man deflects his missile attacks. And when I think about it, every time they showed Green Goblin, it was the one scene, him putting on the armor and him fighting Spider-Man in that brief scuffle they had. That was it. That should have been the warning sign right there. Because, again, for both villains, it was only one scene they were in. And it all amounted to nothing. At least we'll see what happens with Rhino, anyway, in Amazing Spider-Man 3. And there will be a 3, and there's also going to be a 4, hopefully this time. Last time we were working towards Spider-Man 4, it got shut down, but that's an entirely different story, and maybe not for the reasons you may think. So, with that in mind, this is especially odd and jarring, considering that they were quite obviously trying to set up the Sinister Six. And they did it extremely poorly. For instance, Electro really should have been the only villain in this film. Actually, with that in mind, when I think about it, considering what happened to the Lizard back in the first film, they shouldn't have used the Lizard, really. Or they did, it should have been executed a different way for him to maybe make a comeback and for not maybe Spider-Man 2, maybe 3 or 4. But trying to set up the Sinister Six movie, they had Green Goblin, they had Rhino, they had Electro. Rhino and Green Goblin were both extremely underutilized, and Electro really should have been the one and only villain in this film. Then his role in the films is done with. Spider-Man 3, bring out another villain. 4, bring out another villain. Maybe 5, or hell, maybe even 6 to bring out another villain to do the Sinister Six movie. Or hell, you can do multiple villains in one film and then bring out the Sinister Six in maybe the Amazing Spider-Man 4. Maybe that's why they did that in 2. It was just very poorly executed. Electro should have been the only villain in the film. Focus completely on him and make his story arc a lot better. But speaking of Electro, considering the way his character was reinvented for this film, I'll give Jamie Foxx very big props on that. He played the part of Max Dillon, Electro, his alter ego, very, very, very well. The way he's neurotic and obsessed, and the way he got way too interested in Spider-Man because of his reclusive life and his unwilling lonerness. Now, again, I'm hopping on the negative, but okay. One positive thing I would say is that the way Electro's powers were pulled off in the film, just how He was feeding on electricity. His entire body was blue and electrified. How he was sucking up electricity everywhere he could teleport. The costume was pretty good too. I think the producers of the film or costume designers of the film probably. If you're a Spider-Man fan, you know what Electro looks like. He has green and yellow on, similar to the Phoenix from X-Men, just to draw some sort of color palette parallel. And he has that big mask with the lightning bolts on it and the star shape. Yeah, they were right to change the costume for this film. That would have looked just completely fucking stupid for the film. It wouldn't have been good at all. So they did a good job making the all black. This one suit thing where it made him even look more intimidating, if anything. But then I have to take a point back because of the bad speech that Electro did when he rechristened himself Electro. When he was in that was it Rikers? I want to say it was Rikers. No, Rikers is actual prisons. Well, he was in prison, and doing his therapy, when he talked to the doctor, he gave that big speech about how he wanted to destroy Spider-Man and how he christened himself Electro. Not good, I don't think, because the whole speech came off a little bad and kind of forced to me. Because, again, Electro has no reason to hate Electro has no reason to hate Spider-Man. I mean, granted, for those who saw the film, he was a little shocked, no pun intended, that Spider-Man forgot his name, which is a big deal to him because no one ever remembers his name before, except if you read the name tag he has. So the fact that Spider-Man, a person he idolizes and looks up to in a very weird way, remembered his name was a very big deal for him. But then Spider-Man forgot his name for a second. He remembered it eventually. That kind of destroyed him a bit inside. That I thought Spider-Man remembered my name, but he didn't. So that sucks. And then police opened firing on him. Thought Spider-Man betrayed him, and that kind of sent him over the edge. But again, he has no reason to hate Spider-Man because, okay, Spider-Man forgetting his name, that's harsh. I get that. That kind of hurt him. So I'm not gonna blame him for that, especially considering the kind of person he is. But two, he realized he was causing unintentional damage and destruction a bit. So people trying to fire at him, it should be unsurprising. Really, he should have just stayed in the one spot and just placed hands on his head and just surrendered right then and there. But I guess being enamored by his own abilities, he couldn't stop himself. And he stepped forward. I think he stepped in some water, accidentally shot off a bolt of electricity towards Spider-Man, and that's when they started opening fire on him again. And that's where everything just snowballed from there. So it's just odd. His motivation for hitting Spider-Man is he forgot his name, and police shot at him for causing, again, unintentional damage, but damage nonetheless. He has no reason to actually be angry at Spider-Man, so it's like really weak motivation on his part, and I just didn't think it was just very good in that sense. Yeah, I know. I'm. This is all turning into an episode of Cinema Sins, but enough of negative. I think a few things I can focus on that are positive. Was I did like the redesign for the costume. I didn't hate the costume design in the original The Amazing Spider-Man, but I didn't really like it either. I didn't love it. I didn't really like it. I didn't hate it though. I thought the Spider-Man outfit in the first three films, the Raimi trilogy, were better. But I will give him, again, I give props to the new costume in Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's a lot closer to the comics version, especially when you consider the way Spider-Man's body is kind of drawn. As strong as he's gotten in the comics, he's still a bit thin. He's muscular, but not overly so. So I think kind of the skinny-ish look of his costume, especially in the films, was pretty good. When spoiler alert again, when Peter and Gwen broke up and he had to devote himself full time to Spider-Man, that kind of going through his life at that point, seeing him trying to stop pining for Gwen and trying to fulfill his duties to Spider-Man even better than before, actually, since he has so much free time. It gave I think a very good look at where his life is at that point. One of the reasons that Spider-Man is actually so admired, especially in the comics, is that he has a real life, not this super fantastic life where, I mean, he's not. Forget Peter Parker for not being Tony Stark, where he can buy whatever armors he wants and has so much money to toy around with. Forget him for not having super speed or ultra strength like Superman does, so he can get to wherever he needs to be and finish every job he needs to do in time. He's a real person, more or less. And I thought, and at least in that one instance in Amazing Spider-Man 2, and actually, when I think about it, at the end of the first Amazing Spider-Man, we finally got that carton of eggs for Aunt May. I thought those were really good ways of illustrating the kind of person he is, as Peter Parker, not just as Spider-Man. It's like in every other superhero movie, when you see a superhero, it's like they're to the audience, they're that superhero all the time. It's Tony Stark is always Iron Man, Bruce Wayne is always Batman, Clark Kent is always Superman, and I guess the X-Men are always the X-Men. But I think in all the Spider-Man films, all four of them so far, they did a very good job at looking at Peter as a person, as Peter Parker, not just a Spider-Man, examining his life. And again, circling back to what I was saying before, when we saw that montage of him going Spider-Man full time and still pining for Gwen, I thought it was actually a very good decision. It illustrated his character a lot better than at least in the first Amazing Spider-Man, which again, I didn't like much. Anything else? His website was cool. It always is. It was cool in the first film too, to an extent, and it was cool in this film too. That's it, I guess. Oh, well, if I'm right, then we saw Felicia Hardy in the film. Although she was just identified as Felicia, but I think we all know who she is. Eh. For those of you who don't know, Felicia Hardy became the Black Cat in the comics, and she's one of Spider-Man's love interests for a long time. Definitely harder than Catwoman. That's what I say. And I think we can finally get, if they do the main Spider-Man 3 and they put not Gwen Stacy, sorry, Felicia Hardy in the film as Black Cat. And I thought we should get in Spider-Man 4, Battle of the Vultures. But again, it's another story. I want to see Black Cat in Amazing Spider-Man 3, and I don't know, maybe Mysterio. They haven't used him yet, or Kraven the Hunter. Haven't seen him yet. Maybe they could revisit the symbiote from Spider-Man 3. Maybe do it better this time. Maybe. No, we'll see. Well, anyway, thanks for watching. That's my assessment. I know it was all negative. I know. Again, I only saw the film once. I can't give a proper. I don't have the movie in front of me, and I can to be watched a dozen times over to give a proper assessment. Again, this isn't a review. Just what I took from the film. It is better than the first Amazing Spider-Man. I was cautiously optimistic when I saw the trailers for it the first time. So if you didn't like the first film, this one is definitely better. What actually surprises me though is that it actually got a lot. I think on Rotten Tomatoes it has like a 56 or 54%, which surprised me honestly. Because again, I do think it's better than the first film. I think it does a lot better, a much better job exploring Peter Parker as Peter Parker than as Peter Parker than the first film did. So that's one good thing about it, you know. I don't know. If you didn't like the first film, this one may be a little better for you. I liked it better. I'm not saying it was perfect. It obviously wasn't. I just complained about it for nearly half an hour. Take with that what you will. Let's wait for the Amazing Spider-Man 3 and 4 because those are coming. I'm not saying those are going to be fantastic, but again, I'll let me see the trailer first. In I think 2016 is when Amazing Spider-Man 2 comes out. We'll see. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.